Greetings all. Welcome to the first class in this second semester of the Emerald Choral Academy. I am Gary Cannon, the Artistic Director of the Emerald Ensemble, a professional choir based in Seattle. The Emerald Choral Academy is a series of interactive webinars during which our area's leading professional choristers reveal their personal tricks of the trade to community singers. These webinars are then made available freely to singers across the world via YouTube. The Emerald Ensemble is very grateful to our generous donors and other organizations who have made this project possible, including For Culture and the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture. We encourage anyone participating or viewing this webinar to make a donation as you are able at emeraldensemble.org. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our mailing list to hear about future sessions of the Academy and the other activities of the Emerald Ensemble. This webinar is being recorded. By participating, you are granting the Emerald Ensemble permissions to share your contribution. You can ask questions to the presenter by typing into the chat or the Q&A features at the bottom of your screen. Periodically, I will interject to field your questions. Near the end, if time allows, the instructor may be able to work with some of you one-on-one, but otherwise, your microphones and cameras will remain off for the duration of the presentation. You recently received a confirmation email that included a PDF handout. You may wish to access it now, and there's already a link to the handout in the chat window. Our instructor today is Kathryn Weld. There is a very special bond between a voice student and the person who studies in the same room before them. And I had the great honor that Katie Weld studied right before me in Julian Patrick's studio during our graduate studies at the University of Washington. She doesn't remember this at all, apparently, but I don't blame you. And so every week I stood outside the room, arriving early, and thought, what a glorious voice. And it took several years later before we finally were able to work together, and Katie has been perhaps the most vigorously supportive of all of the singers in the Emerald Ensemble. Before all of that, for 5 years, she sang in the opera houses and professional ensembles of Germany, and thus is perfectly poised to teach today's subject, German diction. So it's a great pleasure to introduce to you my friend and colleague and almost neighbor, right? You're like 2 miles away or something. Yeah. My friend Katie Weld. Welcome and thank you for being here, Katie.
Thank you for having me. What lovely to be here, and I'm so excited. However, I will say 5 years in Germany and singing German for, whatever, 35 years or whatever at this point, still does not make one an expert, because there's always these intricacies. But we are going to hopefully find the common ground of probably much material that many of you have been familiar with, and hopefully we'll cement some of those ideas and instructions that you've had from previous choral conductors and or teachers, but and also to find out some of that nuance for ourselves, for our mouths, to feel comfortable, to make it feel like home. So without any further ado, I'm going to go right into it, okay? We're going. So I'm going to, the first page we have here, which I will put on your screen so it comes up nice and handy. And big. So I made a point of so I always scribble in things, because any sheets that you have will never quite cover everything, right? Everyone has their own agenda and sometimes their own IPA symbols as well. But we're gonna deal with one of the basic vowel concepts for German, is that sometimes people think it's dark, and it's not a dark language. The vowel foundation are very much closer to, Italy's right next door. And those Italian vowels are really the foundation of of German, their own pure vowels. So we're going to go through those for starters. We all know that there's those mixed vowels that we will deal with, but in the meantime, we're going to just kind of breeze through these pages. This page is kind of handy because they do the examples in English too, which is always nice for a reference in the beginning. And I added the IPA symbols so that you can later perhaps use those for yourself in your music to remind yourself that this A symbol, the IPA symbol here, is different than the one we typically use, the very round A, which is really our American A. English A is a little darker. Like, even though they use it as an equivalent here, father is really darker than the short A in van. And I like to think of Italian, I think of cara or alma. There's a height to the vowel, and it's not dop. The tongue tends to drop back, and that's the other foundation I want to put out there right now, is keeping our tongues at the bottom of our front teeth, especially for the vowels. It should always return bottom of our front teeth, and on our bright vowels, the sides of the tongue want to be close to the top molars for our bright vowels. And that doesn't mean we have to go like this all the time. We can find that bright E with that position of the tongue. So here we go. I'm going to say the words going down. I'm going to try not to talk excessively on this page, just to get the basic information going. So I would like to say the example for the short A vowel, and I'm going to say it twice with time in between for you to say it too, right? Or you can say it twice after both times I say it. So starting with our short A, van, van. Going to the long, I'm going to call it an A vowel all the time. I will not refer to it as A anymore. The long A, which just means it lasts longer, plain and simple. Sagen, sagen. Still bright. It's not really like aw. So you hear the difference? Sagen and our English aw. Wrong. That's a problem with these sheets. The short A vowel, essen, essen. Pretty easy. That one is like ours, very much. Or as in Latin, et, terra, right? We're familiar with that vowel in many other languages. Long E, long A vowel. This is one we have to think about no diphthong. Regen, regen. This point, think about your tongue. Regen. Going on. The short E vowel is much like ours. Immer, immer. That one's easy. The long E vowel is one that we have to think about our tongue and our teeth, our tongue on the teeth also, because this is one that we tend to go E and do this. But we want this E vowel. Kino is not a great word. I like the other one. Z, Z. It's bright and forward, but it's not as wide. Liebe. I'm just adding that one, our favorite word. Love. Liebe. Right? Going on. Short O vowel is short or open. You can also say open in this regard. Is Gott. Gott. But I like to say that that's really mostly ah with lips, but the lips are still important. So if you say ah, Gott. And the long O vowel, this one we have to be careful, no diphthong as well. Wo. vo. How do we avoid diphthongs? We don't change the shape while we're doing it, right? Vo. Hold the shape and not let it go vo the way ours do, right? We've probably been told that a number of times by people, but just a reminder. The short O vowel or the open O vowel, I'm actually going to go to the closed one first. The closed O vowel is, the closed O vowel, sorry, is pretty easy. Kus, kus. We have that. Moon or moo is even stronger because it's a little bit purer when you don't put the vowel of the consonant on the end. Moo, kus. And then to get the one that's not quite that closed, start with your ku and open the mouth just a bit. So you've got ooh, ku, k, well, where am I in the thing? So kus und, kus und. We just open or drop the jaw just a little bit. That's where a short U vowel is also a more open U vowel. Now we're going to get to the first umlaut's not a problem because it's not the same as a mixed vowel. So the short A vowel with an umlaut becomes very easy. It just changes to the E vowel. Notice the same symbol. So what was man originally, make it plural and becomes menner, menner. And that E vowel is not something you have to fret about. It's really just like our English one. Now when it's long, this is a little tricky because spät, I would say that this is a slightly incomplete symbol for that. It's not quite a double time or long. It's a little bit closed. Männer spät, spät. It's got a little bit of the closed A in it. Symbols are often less than perfect. So now we get to the fun stuff, mixed vowels. So I'm sure you have all heard, we're going to go straight to the U mixed vowel, right, with the umlaut. U with the umlaut. And we're going to go to the long version or the closed version of it. And I want to read you just a teeny thing about this with mixed vowels. And this is from David Adams' Handbook of Diction for Singers that they use at Juilliard. And just a couple sentences. A mixed vowel is one that combines elements of two other pure vowels. In formulating mixed vowel sounds, the first and more important element is the inside or tongue position. Let's not forget that. And the second is the outside or lip position. Always start with the tongue position. It is the core of the sound. The lip position simply colors this core. So we're going to go to that U vowel, and we're looking at the long or closed version of it. And the base of that vowel is the bright E, right? Bright Italian E. So we're going to just kind of get that rolling. We're just going to say E, the tongue's bottom of the teeth. Up here, the tongue is really quite arched forward. E, E. Sing it a few places and feel your tongue position. E, E, E. So now we're going to say that E, and we're going to close our lips around it. You can say that you're making a U shape with your lips around it, but what you're really doing is sustaining that E vowel with the shape of your lips coming in. You're not really, you're using the U only applies to the shape of the lips. So let the lips make that, transform that vowel for you. So continue to say E, E, E. And then I have that handy little, for those of you that your French is better than your German, or you learned how to do that mixed vowel in French, you have tu or la lune. So many words that have that same sound, which is indicated by the Y. So we're going to do that one more time. We're going to do the long E, E, and then we're going to say müde, müde. And then we're going to open that up just a little bit. So technically, they say that the base of this vowel is the I, capital I vowel, with the open O. Oh, did I do the, I didn't actually, so back to the open U. We didn't talk about that symbol, but this is, and the look, which I prefer to foot. Foot is a little, look has more of the und in there. So technically, this open U umlaut should have an I in your tongue. So not E, but I, and then close the lips around it. Just let the lips close and feel that vowel transform from I, and keep it a little more open. So it doesn't go all the way to üde, müde. It goes müssen, müssen. This is not easy. So I recommend every time that you go back to your base vowel, especially for the I vowel. I think most of us have a little easier time finding the E, but then from the I, just allowing it to be a little more open. The jaw, I think, actually is really a little bit open as the lips close, just a little more open. So now we're going to go back and do the same thing with the O umlaut, which we will also start with. Shall we start with the closed one? Yeah, we're going to start. So the closed one is formed with the A vowel, the bright, undiphthonged E, very bright, E, E. And then you close your lips around that one. And technically, you should be closing it to an O, right? A and O. But again, let the lips close toward the O and let the vowel come from that base vowel. So you have your bright A going, mögen, mögen, I actually think, for most of us, to think a little schwa around it without tension, if that brings tension. Mögen. Try it one more time. Long A. Mögen. Mögen. Now we open up that one just a little bit. And again, technically that means you start from an open E vowel. I should have wrote the pairs here. I think they are somewhere. So try that one with me. I have the example of cœur, French cœur. And then we have können. And I'm realizing I'm taking too much time. So we're going to move on to the schwa, but that was great. And we'll have questions about it later. Schwa, which is our unaccented vowels that we have in English, French, and German. And the only difference I would say is that we will always keep a little bit of, you see that I have the open E vowel next to the schwa, which also this Handbook of Singers says, always remember, this is not a schwa that has lips like the French one. but it does have the brightness of the E vowel in it. So it's not our dark So we might say garden sometimes and make it really back and swallowed, garden. But we have garten, garten. It's a little bit of schwa and a little bit of It's all schwa. It just happens to be flavored with because it's German. So great. We're going to go on to their actual diphthongs. So you notice that I have two bracketed together. I don't know why they didn't put them next to each other because they make the same sound and they have the same symbol. But the first one is very familiar to us. We just write it differently in English. But the AU is both of those vowels pretty much. Bright ah, and it's symbolized with and it closes to a O as opposed to an U. So we have Frau and Haus, right? Those are pretty easy for us. Haus sounds a lot like house, right? So, and then we have the two that match, the A-U umlaut and the A-U are both oi, and I like to say it's like oi wees mir, but boy and loiter are also fine. So we have the words Häuser, Bäume. I'll say those one more time. Häuser, Bäume, and below there, heute and Leute. Easy for most of us. Now we have the ein and mein, which sounds pretty much like our version of that. And we also pretty much sing on the dominant vowel in that case. We don't sing ein, we sing ein, right? But sometimes we close too much E vowel, right? And you'll notice that the symbol is either it closes to an A or an I, but not IE, right? Not that tightly closed in the diphthong. And I like to tell my students there's this whole learning the EI words versus the IE words, right? Sometimes it's hard to keep track. But rather than saying that the second vowel is long as in English, I like to just memorize mein, dein, sein. Mein, dein, sein are all those EI words. So you will always know that that sound is the mein, dein, sein. And that the other ones are the DVZ and Liebe. Those are all IE words. So that's my little take on that. And if that isn't clear, you can ask questions later. Is there anything I should be fielding right now before I go on to consonants? Because I'm going too slowly and I need to speed up.
Oh, I don't think you're going too slowly because you're doing so clearly, and that's even just as important. Let me see if I can get myself since I'm speaking. One thing I want to make sure people are clear on is the column on the far right. The IPA signifies the International Phonetic Alphabet, a special tool that many singers use. You can get a lot more information about IPA at one of our videos from last fall that was taught by Michael Bennett. But this is a great shorthand, a great use of it if you've heard that as well. I had two questions for you, Katie, if I may here. One is, does mein, dein, sein mean anything?
Well, yes, it means mine, yours, theirs.
Oh, that's good.
His, actually, mine, yours, his.
Mine,
right,
yours,
and they're words that we just have all the time.
Right.
So it's spelled S-E-I-N and D-E-I-N for the mein, dein, sein, right? The one that's not there on the page. That makes sense.
I also appreciate you're going through the short and long variants. Is there a way that a singer can readily intuit whether one should use the short or long? And I recognize that question may be far beyond the scope of what you have in mind here.
It is. There are some tendencies, as you might expect with many languages. Double consonants tend to make things shorter, right? That's and we'll be seeing some of that when we do some of the practice. But there are plenty of exceptions in that realm. So I appreciated when you said German follows its rules so well, which was actually which was great, and it
Was that
does.
generous?
Well, it was a little. It is generally compared to English. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. But when it comes to those kinds of things, there are numbers of exceptions. So like the S set tends to sometimes be a long vowel, sometimes be a short vowel. So it just depends, even though it's technically a double S, and we haven't even gotten to that, so I shouldn't be saying that in case I'm confusing anybody that doesn't know that S set is the symbol down here, um, which means a double S. So yes, did that somewhat answer? And of course, the problem also with some of that is because like the open I vowels, there are the three-letter like hin and in, which of course don't follow the rule because there's no double consonant, but those are open vowels. So there are, but still, many times, double consonants after the vowel will make it shorter. And H's after a vowel will almost always make it long. Yeah, yeah, that's a real one.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. That's, I think, all we have for questions right now. So I invite you to delve into the world of consonants.
Okay, consonants, yes, which we think Germany is much more consonant bound. So if it isn't mentioned here, it means that, so for example, we have B at the end of a word becomes a P, right? Up. Some of us have been familiar with that for a while too, I'm sure. If it's not mentioned here, that means that B at the beginning of a word is just the way we do it in English, like boop and basin and et cetera, et cetera. So there's normal B's at the beginnings of word, but at the end of the word, it makes a P sound. So we have up, up. And the same thing happens with the D at the end of words. It's normal at the beginning. At the end, it becomes a T. Kind, probably a word we've sung pretty often. Mein Kind, my child. And there are many, many more words like that. A G at the end of a word becomes a K-IPA symbol, for example, and can be spelled numerous ways in English, but G at the end of the word, Guten Tag, Guten Tag. And an H at the end of a syllable, well, this is kind of it's silent, so that's one of the things, and it's also making these vowels long. So, nehmen and froh, nehmen, froh. So it's silent, but it's making the vowel long. And of course, an H at the beginning of a word is, as in English, is there. House and Herz, right? Some of our favorite words. J is what we call a J glide. So it sounds like our Y. Ja, we know that word, ja, nein. And jung, right? And the actual symbol for that Y is a J. So that happens to be based on German. So, and in many languages, actually, J is a Y sound. S before a vowel and between two vowels in general is a Z, right? So this word is Samstag, Samstag, Gemüse, Gemüse, and otherwise it's a good old S like ours, lustig. Everybody say that, lustig. We are so happy and lustig. It doesn't actually mean lusty, right? Darn. And the Z at the beginning and the ends of words is a TS. So we have zwei, which means two, eins, zwei, drei, vier. And then the word ganz, ganz, also has the TS. And there's an N that got left out here. And the only reason that I want to mention N, or specifically NG, because it's one of the buggers that choral singers get stuck sometimes, and it's not written here. But of course, if you saw the word SINGEN, which is the verb to sing, so it has an S at the beginning, which becomes a Z, and it has an NG that sounds just like we were saying singing, singing, but never finger, never the G, hard G. So it sings, so it's singing, and the verb form becomes zingen, zingen, which we've probably sung a few times too. So it's going to come up a little bit later. And if you want to know the symbol, that'll come up later too. V, we're going to go back to V, which at the beginning of words becomes an F, right? So that word is feel and for, right? Then we're going to go to a W, which at the beginning of a word becomes a V, an English V, which is V and vo. Now we're at the S set, which is a double S. So wherever it is, it's a nice full S, and that word is Fuß and Großmutter. Großmutter. I am a new Großmutter. That means grandmother. Okay, so going on. R. So there's a lot of things to talk about R, but I'll try and boil it down to, you flip it when we're singing. We might roll it for emphasis. It's basically a flip, ritter, right? I can flip both of those, and I can flip the one on the end of der, especially if I'm singing it, der ganz, right? If I have the time to flip it, why not? There are times that it's going to become the vowel and get dropped. And we'll look at that a little bit. There's actually two symbols for it. I included one of the symbols here for the dropped or voweled R. But we're going to talk about that just a little bit. And that is actually, with the dropped R, is a little bit like if you were very British and you said mother, mother. So that would make this Ritter und der. So you have the A vowel and a teeny shadowy A vowel. But we're going to go on. You can ask questions about it later. CH after A, O, U, and Au, is our Achlaut, right? So we have the Ich-Laut and the Ach-Laut. And this is the Achlaut. So it's the one, and they don't have that word there, which should be ACH, right? Ach, basic outcry that you use all the time. And then we have Tochter and Kuchen. Basically, the Achlaut comes after open vowels, A, O, U, in general. And I use Scottish Loch Lomond as kind of an example. It's about as close as we get, Loch Lomond. We don't have that in our language. And that is symbolized by an X. But then the Ich-Laut, I think, is a little bit easier for us. They do have, some people would actually say that was human, which is a little bit of an Ich-Laut. And it tends to come after bright vowels. So we have, and I would describe this as, again, put your tongue at the bottom of your front teeth. And there's a little bit of air passing. It's like a hiss of a cat, a little bit. The tongue comes almost all the way up and the arch, and there's a little air passing. Right behind the teeth. Yeah? So the word is ich, and möchten, and 30 comes at the end. The IG is also ich, which happens often. It's a common ending. So ich, say it, möchten 30. Good. SCH is easy. Generally, it's just like our regular SH sound. So we have Flasche and Schau. And the TSCH is like our CH sound. Ch, ch, ch. And so that makes this word Deutsch. We probably all know that word. Sprechen Sie Deutsch. So the SP and the ST, they also come pretty often. And I've heard lots of people kind of, oh, this is where it gets to be a mouthful. Because you have a sh sound that we don't pair with other things like that. We usually have vowels after SH. And so separating the sounds to get comfortable with them is a really great way to do it. So I would say Sprache, right? Sprache, the way they have it spelled out for prime. Let's do that again. Sprache, the flip of the R. And then Sprache, Sprache. Works pretty well. That's the hardest one. Stunde is not so hard, right? And this is that open Stunde, Stunde. And that SH in front of the T is not so hard. Everybody do that one more time. Stunde. Okay. So I have a little bit of practice things to go back and forth to partly training your tongue. So to get our closed E and A, and there's a couple open A's in here too. So I'm going to say these twice. I'm going to stop after the two of them. Encourage you to say the two of them together. Feel the little difference in the hump of your tongue. I am going to flip the R's here. Okay, just saying that. So it's mir, 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 mer. Probably wasn't quite closed enough. Going on. Here, hair. That was not good. Here, hair, and hair. I'm going to do those again. Here, hair. My tongue doesn't want to do it bright enough. Hair and hair. Tricky for our tongues. And then we have dear and dear. That I'm used to doing that one better. Dear, dear. Very closed A vowel. And then one of our other favorite words, beer, and this one's open, bear. So closed E, beer, and open A, bear, bear. Going on, E to mixed vowel. So we have still and stühl. I'm going to say those again. I'll give you time after each one. Still, stühl. And going on, liegen, lügen. See if you can remember that E as that grounding. Liegen, lügen. And vier and für. Vier, für. Good. And closed and open A vowel. So again, we have these really bright wer and wer. Right? Den, den. Wen, wenn. I want to do this one more time. Wir, wer. Den, den. Wen, wenn. Good. Now we get to our, some more mixed vowels. And here comes lesen, lösen. So this is our deeper, this is the more closed umlaut, by the way. Lesen, lösen. Besen, bösen. Okay, going on to the open vowel turned mixed. Helle, hölle. Helle, hölle. Fällig, völlig. Fällig, völlig. That was brilliant. I'm sure you're brilliant. Closed and open O vowel. So we have wohne, wann. So keep some of that O, but release the jaw a little bit, release the lips a little bit. Wohne, wann. Bok, bock. Nice. Closed and open. Ooh. So we have spoken. Spoken. I love that that means to haunt, right? It's cool. Spoken. You're spooking me. And spucken. Spucken. Which you sing if you're doing Messiah in German. Because you spit. Spucken. Now we're going to practice flipped R or dropped vowel R, right? So we didn't talk about that very much, but you have the idea, I think. And so we're going to flip it first. Mir, dir, ihr, wir. And we're going to do those four now with the vowel version of those. And that's assuming it runs into something that it's just going to get in your way to try and flip the R. So you're going to sing mir, mir, dir, ihr, wir. See, I have trouble when I have time. I want to flip it. Mir, dir, etc. And then the same thing goes with flipping it. Wer, right? Both bright, wer. Or we drop it and we sing er. It opens the vowel a little bit too, wer. So the vowel gains, the first vowel, the A vowel, gets slightly more open as that shadow Schwa vowel comes in. Er, wer. All right, enough of that. Should we take any more questions, or if we should go on to reading some words we should be able to really knock out of the park now?
I do have one question. You've actually answered, as time progressed, some of the other questions that have gone in. So hooray, hooray. Things like lustig versus talk, for example, that final G being different when an I is before it. That special exception. I have a question about the flipped and rolled R's. My understanding, which may be inaccurate, is that much of that is a degree of, has to do with the degree of formality that you want to bring to the text. Is that accurate, or are there historical bases?
I think it's really just become, no, I don't know. Now that I've never heard that. That doesn't mean that I know everything. You could very well be right.
Well,
Totally.
let's say then to anybody watching this, don't trust me. Don't trust what I suggested because it remains unconfirmed. If you find
Whatever you would
confirmation
have.
somewhere, go for it.
It might be a little more common, and the formality issue that you might be talking about, whether that means it's Hochdeutsch as opposed to slightly more regionally flavored. In that sense of formality, it could have a little bearing. Um, Fisher-Dieskau, I think formally the flip is there. But as singers over the years um, have wanted to be singerly at all times, the whole idea of sometimes when they come very fast, there's really no time for an R, so they just, like in our own language, if it went by fast, you would drop certain things, and I think they gum up the tongue, so they've kind of fallen by the wayside by eminent singers over the years, eminent German singers, and it's become kind of, I bet it was not in the books per se of diction 30 years ago or something. Seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
I personally think that may be the case, but now it's quite commonly taught. Um, and like I say, I don't think in wonderful diction in most leader singers, which is where it is the most articulate, it's much more likely you're going to hear the flips. You will notice the flips. They will happen. But if the passage is fast, you're not going to know. It's gonna just go away. So it's practical in some ways.
And when the R's, we're talking about final R's in the circumstance, but R's elsewhere are always rolled and continued through, right?
And
You
it's
may have
also
covered
with
that.
prefixes. That's a very good question, Gary. Also with prefixes like vergessen.
Mm.
So if you were singing that fast, you would drop it.
Mm.
Warum hast du mich vergessen? Right? But if you were saying vergiss mich nicht, then you're going to flip it, right? You have time, and it's prettier and more correct.
There's always room for artistic judgment,
Good,
right?
good, yeah.
All right, that's all I have. Thank
Good.
you. Yeah.
All right. So I assume that many of you have sung this piece and probably done a great job with it. But now that we've just talked about some of these, we have a nice prime example of the closed O umlaut and the more open O umlaut right in front of us. So that gives us a great chance to show off our learning. So read it. I'll read one word at a time, and please echo or here we go. Freude, schöner, Götter, Funken, Tochter aus Elysium. I have to say one little thing about the glottal, which is what we get fed a lot of. So if we were saying Tochter aus Elysium, we never sing Tochter raus, right? Because it makes it another word. They're very particular about those, but the glottal is very much underemphasized now, especially for beautiful singing, that we tend to call it a lift. And it does make a difference, the words that you use. So it is the tiniest little pause between Tochter, aus, Elysium, Elysium. That should be your real, I didn't do it right. It is the IPA symbol that you see there is the sound. So that's a U, a closed U umlaut, right? Elysium. Tochter aus Elysium. There we go. So that was little lifts. So we don't have to go Tochter aus right? None of that stuff. Going on. Wir betreten, Feuer trunken, himmlische, dein Heiligtun, deine Zauber. I didn't flip that one. Deine Zauber, because usually this one does get dropped. Deine Zauber bin, because it goes right into binden. Binden wieder, was die Mode streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt. So, Gary, when I see the time, I just want to know if I should open up to questions now and let some of this roll.
Let me look at the handouts. If there are other kind of general things that work, I'd say go for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
There is precedent for going over our
good.
predicted time a few minutes, most particularly when I presented myself. So go for it.
No, I'm totally great. Totally
Yeah,
great.
great.
So let's just go ahead and finish out the Brahms now, right? And I will try and just do word. Wie lieblich sind deine Wohnungen, Herr Zebaoth. Meine Seele verlangt und sehnet sich nach den Vorhöfen des Herrn. Mein Leib und Seele freuen sich in dem lebendigen Gott. And I just threw in 4 words from German Latin just to apply. We didn't actually talk about this little thing, but QU in German is KV, just like our English, and that is the IPA for it, K and V. So that becomes requiem. It becomes a very bright A, requiem. And then the next one is luceat. C becomes a TS, luceat. S at the beginning of a word, because it's German, becomes sanctus. And Zöli, another C, becomes TS. And the OE is just like the Schwa. It's just like the O open umlaut, Zöli, Zöli. And so going on to the next page, this is kind of the next step. This is the first pages that I use today are pages that I give my singers when they're doing their first German piece, like as freshmen at Western, for example. This book, which is the David Adams one that's used in Juilliard, is what we use in diction class, usually their sophomore or junior year. So there are no English examples, but now that you know these symbols, and I pretty much included this so that you can go now and say, oh, I can probably say a lot of this. But of course, there are many, many, many rules that we haven't covered. And so that's why it's kind of a reference page for those that are ambitious and want to know more. And then this last page, I did provide the vowels. This one I think you should, if I did my job today, and you know how to use the resources you have, you should be able to fill out all the consonants with these vowels and get an A, right? That's the idea. And if I haven't, then you write to me and say, you didn't explain this one well enough. So there you have it. So now I would love to take questions.
I don't think you're going to get any you didn't teach this well enough mail, just for the record. So I hope you're not hopeful that you will. um, excellent. I don't have any active questions going on now, so folks feel free um, to ask if there were, and I have now forgotten the one that I had on my own. Oh, a point of clarification regarding the German Latin line that we did, that QV, or sorry, QU becoming KV is also true in German proper,
Right. Exactly.
not just in German Latin.
Yes, exactly, which is why it transfers, and we didn't cover that particular rule, which makes it kind of confusing.
Yeah, it's one of those exception cases. So, right.
Yeah.
Now, and the C in Luceat and Zöli, does C alone happen in German? How does that?
Almost only in foreign words. Oh, I did want to mention,
That's what I thought.
CH, also there's a couple of really important foreign words that come from Greek that they use, and that's CHOR, which is kor, right? So it becomes a K. And then the other one is ORCHESTER, which is orchester, right? So those two words are also exceptions because they're foreign words. In that case.
Yeah, I don't think of them as being foreign words because they shifted over so long ago, but they still are. We do have a question too about that wonderful pesky letter R.
Yes.
And that is under circumstances or uses where you might want to make that a velar R, kind of shift the tongue differently. Or is that what you're referring to by kind of dropped in a way?
You could call that a velar R, yes.
Okay.
You could. Because technically it's see, there's two different symbols for it.
Right.
Too. Sometimes it's the bright upside down. And then sometimes it's the backwards upside down R, which both are technically supposed to mean that sound, right? And the sound is indeed on the soft palate, which is what velar is.
Right.
It's opening up to make it more of an instead of flipping the tongue. So it's a very different process entirely.
Just to make it simpler.
Yeah. These diction people, they get really crazy. Well, and it's hard because it's
well, and in a language like German that historically has so much regional variety, and I mean that I didn't establish a kind of standard German until rather later. The same way that Italian or I mean French, there was kind of the standard Parisian French, and then everything else, but it was still considered standard. While Germany was still figuring out, how it wanted to run itself, and so they all had their own style.
Right. And the brighter schwa, of course, is partially a regional thing. But they are teaching it in diction now, and I am very grateful because, again, if you go back to Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau recordings, his schwas are quite dark. And that was Hochdeutsch, was this dark. Although my friends that have studied in Tübingen and all the oldest universities, the earliest German was actually very much brighter. And Liebe is much more Middle Ages, early and even earlier German. And it is, of course, still prominent in all of southern Germany and Austria. And, so it was the Viennese standard and the Salzburg standard and the certainly the Munich standard where I was. It was very, and it sings more beautifully, so why not?
Well, that's excellent. I think we are here, and I love that send off. That it's all about ensuring that it sings beautiful, that the music sounds beautiful. And Germans had a bad reputation among Americans, at least, that there's these guttural sounds. Well, yeah, but it can be done just as beautiful as anything else.
Right.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kitty, for your fine presentation. Thank you to all of our participants for your questions and contributions as well.
Sorry I
We're
didn't
very
get to see
excited.
you all in person. I just have to say that. I'm very sorry I didn't get to see you all in person and work and playback
Well,
and all that stuff.
we could also, after we close off formally, we could stay on. Anybody who wants to stay on later can have a few minutes if that works for you both, Scott and Katie. Yeah, so if you're interested in getting some one-on-one tutelage, then stay on after the formal send-off, which we're very excited actually today that it is the beginning of this second semester of the Emerald Choral Academy. When we started the first, we thought it might be 6 little things, and now here we have 6 more things, and we anticipate that it might become a permanent fixture of the Emerald Ensemble's activities. Thank you, all of you, for the enthusiasm from our audiences and supporters. You're welcome to join them as well and help by supporting these efforts by donating through the emeraldensemble.org. You can also let us know what topics you would like to see discussed in future semesters, since there are now likely to be some. In the meantime, I'm Gary Cannon, and on behalf of all of the Emerald Ensemble, I wish you all good physical, mental, and musical health. Thank you very much.